The police commissioner of Cambridge, Massachusetts, is assembling an independent panel to review last week's controversial arrest of Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates. Also this morning, we are learning more about the arresting officer. CBS News correspondent Bianca Solorzano is in Cambridge with more. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Since his arrest, Henry Gates has claimed that he was the victim of racial profiling. It turns out the arresting white officer was actually handpicked by a black police commissioner to have him teach recruits how to avoid racial profiling.
The apology won't come from me. I've done nothing wrong.
Sergeant James Crowley, an 11-year veteran of the force, is an expert on racial profiling, having taught a course at the police academy. In an interview Thursday, Crowley defended his actions of 1 week ago.
I acted appropriately. Mr. Gates was given plenty of opportunity to stop what he was doing. He didn't.
And he placed the blame squarely on Professor Gates.
There was a lot of yelling. There was references to my mother, something you wouldn't expect from anybody that should be grateful that you're there investigating a report of a crime in progress, let alone a Harvard University professor.
Crowley also took on the president for his remark that Cambridge police acted stupidly.
I support the President of the United States 110%. I think he's way off base, wading into a local issue without knowing all the facts, as he himself stated.
Meanwhile, the president tried to defuse the growing controversy.
From what I can tell, the sergeant who was involved is an outstanding police officer. But my suspicion is probably that it would have been better if cooler heads had prevailed.
Joining us once again is Professor Gates' daughter, Elizabeth, a writer for thedailybeast.com, and from Massachusetts, Cambridge Mayor Denise Simmons. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Good morning.
I want to read one other quote from President Obama from last night from ABC. He said, "I think it was a pretty straightforward commentary that you probably don't need to handcuff a guy, a middle-aged man who uses a cane, who's in his own home." The president is now involved in this conversation. Madam Mayor, do you feel like your officer responded properly when he went to Professor Gates' home?
You know, just recently, our commissioner, Commissioner Haas, gave a press conference. And in his press conference, he talked about just briefly what had happened. And what he said was that the police officer followed practices and procedures. He also said out of that is that he would be bringing together a panel of individuals to look at what happened, the practices and the procedures, and then from that make the appropriate recommendations.
You said you would love to get these two men together. Have you had a positive response from either?
I certainly have had a positive response from Professor Gates through Professor Ogletree. I have not had an opportunity to talk to Sergeant Crowley, but I have talked to the city manager, and he has committed to getting him into the room with Commissioner Haas. Especially knowing what we know now, Elizabeth, about this officer. This is the guy handpicked to help teach recruits how not to racially profile. It's a guy who helped try to save the life of Reggie Lewis. Is it possible these are two righteous guys saying, "I'm not who you think I am"?
Well, I think at this point it's beyond who they were in that moment. I think now it's about conflict resolution, and I don't think that the officer is at all being cooperative in any kind of extensive resolution to this. I think he's been defensive at best by saying, you know, even I saw on the show yesterday that he refuses to give an apology. So, you know, as the mayor just eloquently stated, my father has said that he'll participate in whatever the next step must be. And if the officer is saying that he won't, I think he needs to maybe extend his sensitivity training.
Here's what's interesting, because this has created this conversation in this country. And I wonder if it only serves to reinforce what people already believe in the first place. If that meeting could be possible, maybe something could go beyond this. But if it doesn't happen, people will just sit back and see that's how it is.
I think you're exactly right. I think if it's left as is, I think we're going to rely on what our preconceived notions of disagreement and race have been for so long. But I think if we watch these two people come together and actually, you know, create a resolution that doesn't end in some bitter lawsuit, I think it will signify progress.
Elizabeth, thank you. Madam Mayor, thank you as well.